Do you know how to keep yourself safe while you're staying warm this winter?
I went down to do the furnace inspection, and upon my inspection, we always check the vent connectors, and I noticed this one was loose, and it kind of came apart in my hand. And the furnace was running at the time. It was probably only maybe 3 minutes while I was actually in contact with the furnace running, and it didn't take maybe 10 minutes after that. I started feeling not well, so it doesn't take long.
My name is Brent Smith. Let's get connected. That famous groundhog didn't see his shadow on Groundhog Day this year, indicating an early spring. But that may only be true for some of us. Many are being advised to not put away the snow shovels just yet. It's a good idea for us to have a conversation about how to safely keep the colder temperatures outdoors. And maybe, for those who are getting ready for that early spring, it might be a good idea to take notes on our conversation today and keep those notes with the snow shovels for next year. Even in the use of acceptable indoor sources of heat, there are dangers. The U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission says that portable heaters, including electric space heaters, were involved in an average of 1,700 fires per year, resulting in an average of 70 deaths and 160 injuries annually from 2017 to 2019. We're speaking today with Susan McKelvey on the importance of safely heating our homes during these cold winter months. Susan is the communications manager of the National Fire Protection Association. Susan, welcome to Weekend Connection on the Bible Broadcasting Network. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
Susan, since we're talking about heating our personal spaces, it makes sense to talk about space heaters. First of all, what should someone look for in an electric space heater?
So first of all, if you're buying a new space heater, you want to make sure that it's listed by an independent testing laboratory. They make sure that the appliance is tested to establish safety levels. It's also really helpful to have an automatic shutoff feature with portable heaters, so if they tip over, the heater will automatically turn off. In general, if you have one at home, you want to make sure that it's in good working order. Are the knobs working the way they should? Do they turn on and off the way they're designed? You want to also make sure that the cords are in good working order, that they're attached firmly to the space heater. There aren't any cracks or frays in the wiring. You just want to make sure that the equipment is working as it's designed to.
In addition to safety features like these, I've heard that there are other things to keep in mind when using a space heater, such as not using a space heater with an extension cord or with a power strip. Is that something we should pay attention to? And if so, why?
Yeah, so you always want to follow the manufacturer's instructions for usage. You should always plug in a space heater directly into a receptacle outlet as opposed to using power strip or extension cords, because you want to make sure that you are safely drawing energy from the receptacle outlet at a level that's appropriate. That might be compromised when you're using extension cords or power strips. So it's really important to do that. And also, you don't want to overload your receptacle outlet. So when you're using a space heater, which draws a generous amount of energy, you don't want to plug anything else into that same outlet, just the space heater.
Are there any other safety guidelines that you feel would be helpful for our listeners to remember where space heaters are concerned?
Yes. So first of all, you want to make sure that your space heater is at least 3 feet away from anything that can burn. So think of things like any furniture, if it's near a couch, drapery, blankets. It's really important to make sure that anything that can burn is at least 3 feet away. And you also want to be mindful for children and pets that might be in the room where the space heater is located. Make sure that someone is around to monitor the space heater and ensure that pets and children stay well away from it. The other thing you want to be really careful about is you can use it when you're in the room, but make sure to turn it off when you leave the room or you go to sleep. And the other thing is never use a space heater in a bedroom when you're sleeping. You really want to be monitoring space heaters carefully. We know from our data that space heater fires tend to happen when people aren't there to monitor them, they're unattended, and something comes in contact with them. So that's why that messaging is really important to follow.
We're talking today with Susan McKelvey, Communications Manager for the National Fire Safety Association, on the importance of safely heating our homes. Susan, we really should talk about safely using a home furnace during our visit today. Is a home furnace a heating source that's as simple as set it and forget it, where we use the thermostat to select our ideal temperature and then pay it no mind?
No, you really do want to make sure that all your central heating systems are in good working order. So that means having it inspected and cleaned if necessary by a qualified professional. And we recommend that people do that before the start of each heating season. You just want to make sure that everything is in good working order. Obviously, if it's not that, then you run the risk of carbon monoxide or, a fire hazard. Those are fire hazards associated with equipment that's not working properly as well. So it's just so important to make sure that your heating systems are in good working order.
So, Susan, we've already addressed fire danger from improper use and maintenance of heating devices, and now we see that there's also a danger of carbon monoxide poisoning. Would you like to say something about the importance of smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors in the home?
So carbon monoxide, you can't taste it, smell it, see it, or hear it. So you don't know when it's in your home. There's no warning sign. So it's real. That's why it's so incredibly important to have carbon monoxide detection in your home, because there is no way to know that it's present. You can take all these steps to minimize the likelihood of having carbon monoxide in your home, but the best thing to do is make sure you have proper detection. In other words, having carbon monoxide alarms in your home to make sure that if there is a presence of carbon monoxide, you're alerted to it promptly and you can get out quickly and safely. So it's important to realize that smoke alarms and carbon monoxide alarms are different things and detect different things. So even if you have a smoke alarm in your home, you can't count on it to alert you to a carbon monoxide incident. And, the presence of carbon monoxide in your home will not be detected by a smoke alarm. So you can have alarms that have both capabilities in one, but you need to make sure that you have the right detection for smoke alarms and carbon monoxide. We were just talking about why it's so important to have carbon monoxide detection. Smoke alarms are your first line of defense in a home fire. They reduce the risk of dying in a fire by more than half. So, particularly in today's homes fires, which burn very quickly, you may have as little as 2 minutes to escape safely from the time the smoke alarm sounds. So having that advance warning is critical to safety. So you really want to make sure you have smoke alarms in all the right locations throughout your home and that they're working properly.
That's very valuable information, Susan. We appreciate your being here and talking with us today. Let's switch tracks, though, for just a moment, if we might. So far today, we've been talking about the safe and proper use of conventional and accepted heat sources in our homes. But there is another way of heating our homes that seems to be gaining traction and popularity. Electricity prices during the winter months have risen fairly steadily since the early 2000s, and they went up 18% between 2019 and 2023. The price increase for natural gas, the most common fuel source for winter heating in the U.S., was even more steep in its climb. This isn't good news for those who aren't faring well in our economy. A 2022 survey from Consumer Reports revealed that 20% of Americans with a household income of less than $30,000 a year and who have a gas oven said that they had used their gas oven with the door open to heat their homes. Susan, is this an example of good old American ingenuity, or is this an example of a really bad idea?
It's, you can understand the temptation to do it if money's, tight and, things are so expensive these days, but it is not a safe idea. You can run the risk of, at the very least, someone, getting burned if you come in contact or near an oven. There's a risk of a fire hazard there, obviously, but also you can present carbon monoxide in the home or nitrogen oxide. So there's all these elements that can build up in your home that present all these safety risks to people. So if you really are struggling to heat your home, contact your community, the local fire department or police department, there are a lot of resources available for people who need assistance with heating. It's a much better way to go. It's never a good idea to use an oven to heat your home. That's not what they're designed for.
So it is a bad idea, and we should steer away from that. Thank you for that, Susan. But if avoiding the use of a gas oven as an indoor heating source is the way to go, what about using an electric oven with the door open? It seems on the surface that it would be more expensive to do that than to use a space heater. But are there other ways that it wouldn't be advisable?
It's, again, ovens are not designed to be heat sources, and you're presenting the risk of something coming in contact with the oven. That could be a fire hazard. Someone can burn themselves if they come in contact with the oven. So once again, regardless of the type of oven should not be used as a heating source.
So far, then, it sounds like either a properly maintained furnace or a safely used space heater is the way to go. What about heating a home during a crisis that results in a gas and electricity shutoff? Is it safe to use a gas-powered generator to operate a space heater?
So you would just want to make sure in general, if you are using generators, you use them outdoors in well-ventilated areas, at least 20 feet from all doors, windows, and vent openings. And you never want to use a generator in an attached garage, even with the door open. So it's not so much a question of what you're using the generator for. It's making sure that you're using the generator properly and safely.
So, Susan, just to be clear and drive the point home, if a generator is to be used outside at least 20 feet away from any opening that leads into the house and is not to be used in the garage with or without the door open, we definitely don't want to use that generator inside the home.
Absolutely. You always want to make sure that you place generators so that the exhaust fumes cannot enter the home through windows, doors, or other openings. And, the exhaust has to be directed away from the home.
We're thankful to have Susan McKelvey, Communications Manager for the National Fire Protection Association, joining us today on Weekend Connection. Susan, we have discussed quite a few ways to bring heat indoors and how to use heat sources safely and properly, but we haven't talked yet about open flame. Using a fireplace or wood stove might seem to be a common-sense way to stay warm during the winter. Are there any considerations for people using a fireplace?
Yeah, so you want to make sure, once again, like with any other type of heating equipment that you're using, that it's in good working order, that it's been cleaned as needed and inspected. And then you want to make sure that you're only putting in fuel sources that are designed for a fireplace. Once again, you want to make sure that you're monitoring your fireplace carefully when it is in use, that you have a solid, sturdy screen that could catch embers from flying out of the fireplace. You also want to make sure, a lot of times people will use a lot of decorations around their mantle, but you really want to be careful of that and make sure that you keep anything that can burn away from the fireplace. And then, of course, once you're finished using it, make sure that the fire is completely out before leaving the room or your home or going to sleep.
Susan, it looks like our remaining time on today's Weekend Connection is turning into fading embers, and we'll need to stoke the fire to continue our conversation on next week's program. We still have quite a bit to discuss where the dangers of improperly heating our homes is concerned, and so we trust that everyone will make it back here next Saturday just after 4 p.m., 3 p.m. Central for Weekend Connection. Susan, we're enjoying having you as a guest, and I would imagine that you have helped to prevent the loss and damage to property, but most importantly, the loss of life. On behalf of our BBN listening family, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
On today's Weekend Connection, we've been talking with Susan McKelvey, Communications Manager for the National Fire Protection Association. If you have any questions regarding what we have discussed on today's program, please visit the National Fire Protection Association's website at nfpa.org. This is Brent Smith thanking you for listening to Weekend Connection on the Bible Broadcasting Network.
Thank you for listening to this feature, a production of BBN, the Bible Broadcasting Network. BBN provides 24-hour Christian programming, great Christian music, and Bible teaching. Listen to BBN by clicking the link in the description.